Welcome to another episode of the Reboot Chronicles, a no-holds-barred forum with global leaders, authors, entrepreneurs, and CEOs about how organizations stay focused on growth and innovation in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean Tobias, coming to you live from Reviv's North American headquarters in Chicago, and we would like to thank you for joining us from around the globe today. I'd like to welcome Rami Rahim, the CEO of Juniper Networks, to the Reboot Chronicles today. Headquartered in Silicon Valley with over 9,000 employees in 50 countries and over 4.7 billion in revenue, Juniper and Rami, quite frankly, were pioneers in building the internet. Along the way, he has received a lot of accolades. My favorite one is he was named one of Economic Times' most loved CEOs. I can't say that about myself. So that's a nice title, by the way. Good to see you, Rami.
Thank you, Dean. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate the invitation.
Yeah, we're big fans of kind of the behind the scenes companies that don't get enough attention. A lot of competition in your space, of course, but not enough talk about it, I think. So, Juniper was a pivotal player in the creation of actually making the internet work, something we all take for granted. That was back in the 90s, from the dial-up era all the way through the broadband and beyond. Gosh, at the time I was making the first cable modems, so dating myself here, but I think you were just a young engineer at that time. But let's just jump right into it. From what I see, my vantage point, it seems like telecom and infrastructure growth has kind of slowed. I don't know about 22, 23 with supply issues and stuff. Maybe there's a lot of ordering going on, but I guess the first question right out of the box is, how are you rebooting into a more agile growth company? And how are you positioning yourself against these competitors and kind of move from this hardware-centric world into more software, AI-driven cloud services, security, 5G? I could rattle off more buzzwords, but just, how's that whole reboot? How are you approaching it, and what's going to happen?
Well, what a great question to kick off the conversation.
Yeah, nothing like jumping right into it.
Juniper has always been a true innovator in IP networking technology. We were builders of the infrastructure that helped the internet scale at a time when service providers were really struggling to keep up because it was really at the cusp of the dot-com boom. So imagine a little upstart company trying to convince service providers to trust their networks with a startup's technology. The only reason that I think we managed to get that kind of trust is because they really had no choice. Traffic was exploding, and they needed technology that could keep up with that traffic. And we had an innovative new architecture to developing routers, core routers at the time, with silicon technology and a very scalable internet-grade operating system that could keep up with that demand. And today, we're proud to have the top 50 service providers around the world as our customers. But we have, to your point, absolutely by necessity evolved our business and diversified our business. So today, if you look at our business, it's actually very nicely split between telecom operators, which remain extremely important to us. Yep. Cloud providers, all of the major hyperscale cloud providers in the world are our customers, and global 1,000 type enterprises that are increasingly trusting their networks on our technology. And I think in the early days, our claim to fame, our credibility, our pedigree was in scale and performance, and of course that remains important today. But I truly believe that the game has changed. I think things have evolved beyond just scale and performance into experience. Right now, if I talk to a CTO, a CIO, or a CEO of a big Fortune 500 company, or a telco or a cloud provider, their biggest challenge is complexity in network operations that's slowing them down. And sometimes just bogging down progress. And the solution to that is, in fact, software-driven innovation, AI-driven innovation that will remove the complexity from running networks. In fact, to remove the human factor from running networks altogether. So if you look at our innovation today, It is mostly in software. Apstra, for example, is our solution to day two automated operations of the data center. Our Mist AI engine is all about automated operations of client-to-cloud enterprise services. So Juniper has evolved a lot from those early days of helping to scale the internet.
Yeah, I'll jump into that in a second, the AI part. But as this often happens on this program, I have flashbacks. So at the time while you guys were coming out, it was you and Sun, and I was running the Imagination Network, one of the first online games companies, and we had to build our own server rooms back then. And you guys were, we weren't that big, and you guys were supporting us. And I was like startup working with startup, and then there was Sun who thought they were going to rule the universe, and it was an interesting time, very hardware centric. A lot of people, we called it sneaker net, right? A lot of people running around, and the industry it seems like it has evolved so much. So every time people hear AI, it seems like it's hyped up just about as much as metaverse. In terms of keywords, it's often misunderstood. For instance, Raviv, the sponsor of this program, we have an AI technology that is at the edge, and at the edge for retailers and brands to help communicate and personalize services with all their customers. Whereas you have AI, at the on the back end, and in the actually all the way out to the edge, I'm sure. But why is AI? I guess why is it so important? Sounds like you're going to eliminate some manual processes, and how is it actually going to help the industry? At the network level.
Well, I'm glad you're asking, because honestly, this is one of my favorite topics.
This might get too geeky. Little audience warning here.
I will try to minimize the geekiness, but being
I was talking about myself
by
too,
trade,
so it's okay. Yeah.
To talk about AI, I think you need to start by talking about data. Data is now the most precious, valuable resource in the world, and we, as a planet, are accumulating data at an unprecedented scale. I heard a stat recently that 90% of all data in the world has been accumulated in the last 2 years alone. So now the question is, what do you do with all this data, right? And this is, I think, where AI comes in. There is no way for human beings to process this data manually. AI is this new breed of learning that's not learning through programming algorithms. It's actually learning by looking at patterns in data. And now attaching it, connecting it to our industry, we as in an industry, our customers are sitting on gold mines of information that today are largely untapped. So AI, as applied to our industry of networking, is incredibly promising. It gives our customers the ability to collect data in real time. I'm not talking about the spooky customer, payload stuff, just performance data that gives us real-time visibility of the experience of every user on the network as they do whatever they need to do on that network. You take that data, you learn from that data, and then you automatically translate it into useful things. And for us, those useful things, those compelling outcomes that we're able to offer our customers from this data are things like the fastest deployment times, the fewest trouble tickets, the fastest time to resolution of trouble when there is in fact trouble. Typically, you're solving problems before humans even know that a problem exists.
For those of you listening, that means when your Slack channel goes down, this can actually bring it back up quicker. It identifies the problem and fixes it.
Yeah, and you touched on something, which is that there's a lot of AI washing out there. There's a lot of confusion. There are a lot of people that are claiming AI when it's really just PowerPoint AI. But I think we've moved from PowerPoint into actual real outcomes that we're able to offer our customers. And probably the most fun part of my job today as a CEO and also a technologist is to convert those skeptics almost every day now into AI believers by demonstrating the value that we can deliver through automated operations. And I think, honestly, the future of networking is about AI. We are simply scratching the surface right now of what is possible.
Yeah, and you're not just talking here. I mean, you put your money where your mouth is. You've made a couple acquisitions in the space. We'll talk about how you dance with startups in a little bit, but you acquired maybe 1 or 2 AI companies to get ready for this. This isn't something you're just putting in your slideware, as we say.
We absolutely have, yes. We've always been a big, innovative, technology-led company. We've always invested a large part of our revenue in R&D, but we're also, humble enough to recognize that sometimes the best innovation are outside of our four walls. And we were very fortunate to combine with some amazing team, great talent, and amazing technology. Mist is an example of an enterprise architecture that is driven through cloud-delivered AI. And actually, the AI engine for Mist is called Marvis, affectionately called Marvis. Marvis is honestly one of the most compelling technology breakthroughs in our industry I have seen in my entire career. And that's just because Marvis is the first thing that I have seen that has really moved AI from a concept, from just talk, into actual real life results for our customers. And we've taken it from there into Apstra, that does something similar for the data center. NetRounds does something again similar for service provider wide area networking.
I like Marvis. That could trend as a new child's name. We'll see if that takes off. It's better than an acronym. I mean, come on. So you've just hit on a bunch of things. Let's just try to drill down and unpack a couple. One is co-creation, partnering with startups. At Kellogg, I've got a Dancing with Startups program. We bring some of the largest and the smallest companies together on the planet, really to help brands like you figure out how to kind of dance that ecosystem, who to partner with. But it's always through a build, buy, borrow lens. So you've talked about companies you bought, which totally accelerated your AI capabilities. And what about other things in terms of partnering with startups on the whole co-creation side? Can you tell us what you're doing there?
Certainly. I mean, I think if you look at Juniper's pedigree, our history, we grew up as a challenger in an industry that had strong incumbents. And in order to succeed in that environment, I think openness is your friend. The ability to demonstrate to your customers that you're not going to lock them into anything. You're going to embrace open interfaces, northbound, southbound, into the optical layer, eastbound, into peer solutions is very important to them. And that's something that I view as extremely important to maintain, irrespective of how big we get. I mean, in many networks now, we are the incumbents, but I never want to lose sight or lose that pedigree that we have in the company of openness, because it's just so important for our customers. Now, it sometimes makes it more challenging for us, because when you're this open, you've got to constantly compete and innovate and demonstrate to your customers that you have the very best solution. But this is an area that I absolutely always commit to my customers, that having that openness to work seamlessly with peer solutions, with startup technologies that are out there, is a lasting element of working with Juniper.
And you've got no shortage of competitors, as I mentioned, and some of them you've kicked around the block. I mean, companies like Cisco have struggled over the years. I mean, some kind of come and go depending on the CEOs and the investments, but it's got to be tough because some people call it the pizza box server market, where you're just sliding stuff in. Amazon probably hasn't helped commoditizing that, and so that kind of leads to an interesting question: is just what do you think are the biggest challenges, I guess, in your industry at this time, and what are the biggest threat, and how are you approaching that? Or quite frankly, does your whole industry need a reboot? I know you're rebooting the company, that's what we're talking about, but are some of them still stuck in the old, we call them BFSs, big, fat, and slow, so they're still like making hardware versus changing the game?
There's no doubt that this has always been a very competitive industry, and this is an environment that we are used to operating in. And the key aspect to our ability to compete over the years has been around our innovation. And innovation is really a cultural thing that we maintain true to our DNA in the company. And to me, innovation is about having the courage to try new things and even to fail, and giving Juniper employees the belief that failure is not a problem. This is how we instill the spirit of risk-taking and innovation in the company that has worked so effectively for us over the years. Now, your question also touches on industry challenges. Well, there are no shortage of industry challenges. This is a challenging industry at the end of the day. Probably one of the biggest challenges that we're facing right now is around semiconductor shortages. This is very often talked about topic these days. It's not just affecting our industry, it's affecting practically every industry today. Does it need a reboot? I mean, absolutely. Today, maybe around 90% of semiconductor supply comes from Asia. Maybe 90% comes from Taiwan, a small, little island in Asia. And I don't think this is a healthy balance. We need much more domestic manufacturing. We need more manufacturing in Europe. We need the government to pitch in, because honestly, this is a matter of national competitiveness and security. I am encouraged by some of the investments that US companies like Intel and Global Foundries are making.
Intel is putting billions of dollars to work. Yeah. And by the way, as we speak, the CEO is testifying on Capitol Hill, exactly the pitch you just gave. It's not just a protectionist strategy, it is a growth strategy. But you're right, they have put billions of dollars to work and taken a hit on their income statement to get this going, or at least their balance sheet.
I think it's the right thing to do. It's the right decision to make by semiconductor fab companies in this country, and we fully support it.
Yeah, that's amazing. And how do you kind of look at, your co-creation efforts when you look ahead, when you look at, we like to call product roadmaps and boring stuff like that. Where do you see yourself? And the pretext under that is I've talked to companies on this program over the last 10 years, and some of them are hardware companies that could not figure out how to change themselves into a service company. I just mentioned one a while ago, who ended up acquiring some. Bracken Darrell, the CEO of Logitech's been on. They're still primarily a hardware company, doing extremely well, of course. Great leader like you. But yeah, I guess two things. How do you see the migration of yourselves in the industry? And do you see it more of a, not just software as a services company with a balance of hardware, but do you see going into other types of things in the future that maybe we haven't thought of yet?
Yeah. When I look at the history of networking, I've been in this industry now for 25 years. There have been some key inflection points. In the 80s, there was around this unifying network protocol, TCP/IP, that became the one language that everything and everyone spoke over the internet. Juniper bet its existence on that.
Yeah,
in the 90s, it was around
formed it.
Yeah, and in the 90s, it was around high-performance silicon technology that allowed the network to scale. Juniper led this revolution. I think if you look today, the key inflection is around software control points that remove the complexity of network operations. And this is what we define as experience-first networking. Now, hardware remains very important. At the end of the day, networking is inherently a distributed, high-performance problem where you need processors, you need networking silicon to move traffic as fast as possible. But the promise of simplifying network, of removing the obstacles of complexity from network operations is first and foremost a software challenge. And this is why all of the companies we've acquired over the last few years have been software. Most of our R&D innovation is in software today. Our software business is growing at a very fast pace. Last year, we hit over $1 billion of sales achievement in software. So it is an incredibly important element of our innovation. And it is the thing that's driving the biggest inflection point in networking today, which is around experience-first networking.
Yeah, that is a big reboot, by the way. So performance is good there. You mentioned, you just had a throwaway comment in there about how long you've been at the company. I think your employee number, was it 32 or something, or even lower?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes. It's that's amazing. And that was you've been there over 4 decades, the way I measure it, because it's 90s, and we're just getting into the 20th, but it's 4 decades. So what, I guess, a couple of questions. What the heck has your journey been like, just personally? Forget the business stuff here for a second. Coming at it from an engineering point of view, you and your competitors definitely are sales and marketing culture, because it is so competitive out there. But I'm also hearing a very strong engineering innovation culture at your company as well.
Absolutely. I often get asked, why have I stuck around at one company for so long? It's a common question.
You are rare.
It does come down to a couple of things. First and foremost, it's the people. I mean, the opportunity to work and to learn from some of the smartest people in the industry. And I've never, in the 25 years I've been in this company, felt like I'm the smartest person around. I mean, there's always an endless amount of engaging conversations. Even as a CEO, my favorite conversations are usually up on a whiteboard with a technologist solving a real customer problem. There's another aspect of this, I think, that has kept me around, and that is Juniper is very much a purpose-driven company. You know, we develop switching, routing, security products, but at the end of the day, we develop something that's far bigger and more powerful than that. What we do really matters. What we do helps our customers change the world. If you think about just the last couple of years of the pandemic, I shudder to even imagine a world where we didn't have the network that kept us connected to our families, educating our children, shopping, moving commerce along. You know, this is all as a result of this incredible global network that not just Juniper and our industry have helped create. To me, I find this incredibly motivational, and this is why I've stuck around in this industry and this company for as long as I have.
That's a really great way to reframe a question, by the way. It's just like, why have I stayed? I know a couple CEOs that fire themselves once a year as part of a practice. It was popular in a book years ago, and that refreshing that I've never seen them not come back, but whatever. It's a tad self-serving, but actually it's a brilliant way to get back and stuck back on the, you know, the actual purpose of what's going on and why you're there. And you hit on another thing, which is the internet. Those of us started out in the early days where we had to actually build it while it was going. As it's such a point now. I mentioned, you know, the games company, when they build our own server rooms, it costs about $50 million to get a good startup going, and infrastructure and all that cost. And now I've got a slide where I show every company I've been either CEO or chairman of, it gets down to almost like $5,000 right now with things like the AWS and other things. I've never seen a better time and a better platform for innovation. And I know that's part of your passion as well as what has come out of the internet. And that's so not necessarily the internet itself, but all the capabilities that we now take for granted. And what's exciting more, and there's a question here, is where's it going? So things like the metaverse, 3D modeling, lots of educational, manufacturing, design, all types of applications there that are out there, even if it's just a boring Zoom meeting. But where do you see the potential of it going in the next 10 years?
Well, I touched on one area that it is where it's going, and that is AI, and AI as a means to an end. And that end I would summarize as the self-driving network. In much the same way as we're moving to a self-driving car, we shouldn't underestimate just how big self-driving cars are going to be, right? They're going to change the face of cities. They're going to remove the need for parking structures. They're going to save lives. There is a similar need for self-driving networks. I mean, another area that I can touch on that I think, you know, this industry is going is around security. As proud as I am of the global network that we have built together as an industry and here at Juniper, I think we also have to admit that it's the very connectedness that we've created that has unleashed sort of unprecedented threats and unintended consequences. We've, for cyber criminals, removed time, distance, and identity constraints of doing bad stuff. So it's extremely important that as an industry, we think about security embedded in every aspect of what we do. You know, if in the past, the constraints of building and expanding the network were things like Moore's Law, scalable protocols, you know, scalable silicon technologies, I think the future is around dealing with complexity, which I already mentioned, and then trust, right? And that's where I really take the security of the products that we develop really, really importantly. And you know, Juniper's approach to security is not just about developing firewalls. It is really around thinking about the network as your threat vector, as your threat posture to prevent the bad guys from doing their dirty work. Because every ransomware attack, every cybersecurity threat relies on the network to do bad things. Well, why don't the good guys rely on the network to detect those bad things and to prevent them where it makes the most sense to prevent them?
Exactly. I do a lot of governance work with corporate boards, and you know, cybersecurity was all the rage. Everyone got trained, but it is still a defensive mode, not offensive, to your point. They're not, they should be playing offensive, just like they're being attacked back. And if anyone knew the amount of times let's just say a brand that you use, maybe that makes food for you, the number of times that corporation was hacked on a daily basis, times it's thousands. It's just normal course and speed. So security is huge. Where else are you, or the lack of it right now, but what are the big bets you're looking at?
Yeah. So AI security in the realm of service providers, 5G is obviously a very big emerging opportunity. And within the sphere of 5G is this concept of network disaggregation, where what was once bought and deployed in these vertically integrated systems, especially for the radio access networks, are now slowly becoming disaggregated into separate components and separation of software and hardware. And the beautiful thing about this is Juniper has nothing to lose here. You know, we are, again, a challenger in this space and have an opportunity to deploy and to offer our customers a very disruptive, economically compelling solution for disaggregated RAN or open RAN. So we have placed our bets. We're working on technologies in something called a RIC, or a radio intelligence controller, that adds software intelligence to an end-to-end disaggregated open RAN network. And we're honestly seeing some really promising early signs in terms of interest for our customers, interest in the outcomes that we can deliver in terms of greater agility and better economics of deploying these 5G networks worldwide, something I'm super excited about.
Yeah, and there's 6G coming. But is there a trend to, for corporates, let's just say, to bring stuff back on premise now that they've gone crazy with the cloud? I've heard in some circles that some people are just nervous about everything being out there.
Yeah.
And it just seems like the train has left the station, but what say you?
Well, I would not bet against public cloud. I think every public cloud company is reporting, unbelievable growth right now, and that is indicative of the direction for the market. However, I do believe a few years ago, there was almost this belief that everything was going to move to the public cloud, all workloads, all applications. I think today people are far more realistic about what goes into a public cloud, what stays in a private cloud or a private data center, because that's just what makes the most economic sense. The challenge that we faced when we talk to customers around how they balance those two things, public versus private, is they're just very worried that for the applications and workloads they want to keep on private cloud, they don't believe that they have the core competence, the skill set to manage a private cloud data center as effectively and efficiently as a hyperscale public cloud provider.
Yeah, they've lost that muscle memory. Exactly.
Yeah. But this is where our message, our pitch is very simple. You don't have to be an expert. Leave it to the robots.
It's almost like a no-code, almost like no-code, low-code kind of thing.
It's exactly right. I mean, that is Abstra, which is a company and a team and a technology that we acquired just a year ago, in fact, has invented this concept of intent-based networking, which essentially means it will simplify the act of operating networks to the point where it's essentially like, using a public cloud provider. So there is really no excuse for any company out there that's thinking about balancing workloads between public and private to not do that. The technology exists to enable them to do that as cost effectively and efficiently as possible.
Yeah, makes sense. Rami, I really want to thank you for joining us today. It's been a great discussion. Any final words of wisdom for aspiring entrepreneurs out there, or maybe engineers that were employee number 32, about how they can follow in your footsteps and become a CEO someday?
It's a good question. Maybe the one message I'd have for those aspiring CEOs is that you don't need to jump around to move ahead in your career. I mean, just look at me. I've been at this company for 25 years. I've done many different jobs at this company. I will admit I never had my eyes set on the CEO chair, but that doesn't mean I wasn't ambitious. And I didn't have this sort of 5-year, 10-year plan, but I just worked super hard at whatever task was given to me, built a reputation of delivering, and whenever that next opportunity inevitably showed up, I jumped on it. Even if I didn't feel I was 100% ready, I would go for it. And that recipe worked for me, and it might actually work for those that are aspiring for the corner office as well.
I love that. No matter what your next goal is, but jumping into something you're not ready for is the most important thing you can do. Don't wait till you're ready. I love it. Thanks for joining us, Rami. It's been great to see you again. You've been listening to Rami Rahim. He's the CEO of Juniper Networks. This is Dean Tobias with the Reboot Chronicles. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we will see you soon.